Welcome to Breakfast Daily and happy Easter.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It was great. Yesterday I was at Basco and it was quite exciting.
Oh, you went there?
It felt like a movie, you know. It felt like a movie. No, I have to learn how to ride bike. If for nothing at all, for shaking reasons, you know.
I saw video of the bikers arriving. It was like some like she said, Hollywood movies. Like, you know, the appearance of the bikers. You know?
Yeah, I always thought that. Okay, so I'm not really attracted to a lot of things, but I think that I'll be attracted to. No, you should learn how to ride a bike.
Welcome you, open arms.
Maybe I like a guy who ride bike. No, but it was beautiful, and I mean, thank you guys very much. You donated, and you also came there to be on bikes, motorbikes, all the way from Accra to Basco. I think that was really some level of commitment.
I was trying to picture the mind of a child seeing these bikes.
You should have seen the children, David.
Because you see, for me, it's about the inspiration.
Yes.
It's about inspiration. You live in Troto, outside of Suhum. So you're not even in Suhum, right? What is it that's going to inspire you to become bigger than what you see in your environment?
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, that was the whole point. I mean, because it was raining and it was quite an inconvenience. But yeah, we wanted to inspire the children, you know, give them something to look up to or to look forward to. So it was exciting.
No, I mean, I was excited. I was so much excited. So I can imagine how the children will feel like, you know, like some motor guy. There are many, you know, coming and not Okada kind of bikes.
No.
You know? I mean, these guys, I'm like, yo, two of these and I have a Mercedes-Benz, you know? But it was beautiful. It was so nice. Thank you very much, you know, for coming. But for now, let's play the doctor role that you are.
Yes.
Peptic ulcer. What is that?
How boring.
I know, right?
Well, I mean, peptic ulcer, I mean, it's for a lot of people, all of us know about it. We call it ulcer, you know, stomach ulcer, you know, I have an ulcer, my ulcer is acting up, you know, so peptic ulcer simply refers to an ulcer or an opening in the lining of the stomach. You know, medically speaking, an ulcer basically is an opening. So if you have a cut on your hand, it's actually an ulcer. Okay. You know, so when that ulcer occurs in the stomach, then we call it a peptic ulcer. And there are other forms of ulcer in the stomach as well, but then in other places. But the peptic is in reference to it gives you an idea of what the origin, what caused it. You know, so in the past we thought it was caused by excessive acid in the stomach. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure by now you know. I mean, from general science in primary school, that there's acid in the stomach, which serves a very important purpose. I mean, it helps with digestion. It also protects the stomach in the sense that if there's a foreign bacteria in the food you're eating, the acid is supposed to kill it. You know, so that's the idea. You know, but then over time, it was discovered that there's actually a particular bacteria that is always if you run a test on people who have ulcers, stomach ulcers in this regard, there's that particular bacteria which always is present, and that's the H. pylori. The full name is Helicobacter pylori. And interestingly, the one that made this discovery, they didn't believe him. So what he actually did was that he actually cultured the bacteria, and then he ingested it intentionally so that he could prove that the bacteria actually will cause ulcer. And yes, indeed, he has started developing the symptoms, and then he went to the treatment. That's how they actually believe that the Helicobacter pylori.
But you can just pour the thing on meat and see what happens.
Well, they had done everything, and they were still not believing him. So now the next thing, and nobody wanted to put themselves out for the experiment. So he did it on himself. You know, to show that he was convinced that this was the cause of ulcer. And indeed, now it's accepted that H. pylori actually causes peptic ulcer. So that's one cause of peptic ulcer. The second cause of peptic ulcer, which actually is a major issue in our setting, is NSAIDs. Now, NSAID is non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, you know. And so, to put it simply, diclo, brufen, aspirin, you know, APC, all those medications are combinations of NSAIDs and something else. So NSAIDs actually also deplete the mucus. That's the thing that lines the stomach and prevents the acid from touching the skin of the stomach. You know, the stomach has cells. On top of the cells, we have the mucus layer, you know, and that mucus layer prevents the acid from getting in contact with the cell. Because this is acid, if acid touches your skin, it's going to hurt.
So is that why you are advised strictly to eat before he takes such medication? Has that got any connection?
I mean, that's actually the reason why you have to eat before. You see, because the idea is that when you eat and there's food in there, the food sort of prevents the NSAIDs from directly interacting with the mucous membrane to destroy it, so that then the acid now has contact with the skin. I mean, I put the skin in cool because it's not actually skin, you know. And so that's the whole thing. So the NSAIDs actually deplete the mucous layer and then now give the acid the direct contact with the stomach, and then that then erodes that area, causing an ulcer. So those are the two main causes of the peptic ulcer. Now I keep mentioning stomach, but it's actually not only in the stomach. It also occurs in the small intestine, particularly the duodenum. The duodenum is the portion of the intestine that continues from the stomach. So the stomach opens into the duodenum, you know, and that area also can develop an ulcer. You know, so peptic ulcer refers to the stomach ulcer and the duodenal ulcer as a result of either the NSAID or the H. pylori. The H. pylori is indeed the most common, you know, but the NSAID is not too far behind.
So how do I know I have peptic ulcer?
Well, there are symptoms, but let me just start by saying that most people actually don't have symptoms. You know, it's there, but they don't know that it's there until there's a complication. You know, however, some of the symptoms, the commonest symptom is actually pain. Pain is one of the commonest symptoms that you pick, and interestingly, by the pain you can actually tell which one you have. You know, so yes, so the pain of the stomach ulcer, you know, it comes when you are hungry. And then the pain of the duodenal ulcer comes when you are full. So yes, so that's actually a classic differentiation between the two, you know. But of course, nothing is ever classic. So they usually come with a mixture of the pain. But classically, the pain of the stomach ulcer is when you are hungry, and this is because when you are hungry, or when the sensation of hunger kind of triggers the acid production. And I remember that there's already a cut in the stomach lining. So once the acid begins to come up, and it interacts with that opening, it gets painful. So that's why you get, whenever you're hungry, you have pain. So you notice that people with stomach ulcer, the pain is worse when they wake up in the morning because they've had that overnight fast. So it's worse in the morning. And so as a result, people with stomach ulcer tend to gain weight because they use food. Yes, they use food to calm the pain. You know, so then they tend to gain weight. You know, whereas people with duodenal ulcer have the pain when they eat, because once you eat, then the stomach is full, then it begins to open into the duodenum. Now there's a cut in the duodenum, so as the food, which is now mixed with acid, now enters the duodenum, then it becomes painful. So people who have duodenal ulcer tend to lose weight because they reduce how much they're eating because of the pain after eating. You know, so but like I said, these are classic symptoms which you don't usually encounter because life is not that easy. You know, if everything was classical, it would make the diagnosis easy. But apart from this, some people also come in with the severe forms of complications like vomiting. They come in vomiting blood. I've seen red blood because the ulcer has now perforated into a blood vessel. You know, or they may come in with severe abdominal pain because the ulcer has perforated into the abdomen. So now the acid is not just in the stomach, it has now moved out of the stomach into we call it peritoneum. The peritoneum is the cavity where all your abdominal organs are sitting, and that is a catastrophic emergency if it is not acted on. Imagine acid in your stomach. I don't know if you can paint that picture. It's literally dissolving everything in there. So time is exactly. I mean, you can't sit in a house and the good thing is the good thing is that because of the severity of the pain, they don't even sit in the house. Like when it happens, they are rushing to the hospital from wherever they are because it's extremely painful. I mean, again, picture acid pour, even hot water pours on your hand, and acid pain is worse than that. So you can imagine. So it's an emergency. When they get to the hospital, everything stops. We have to send that person to the theater immediately, you know, but we shouldn't wait for it to get there.
But what is causing this? So you are eating, you are getting ulcer of the duodenum. You are not eating, you are getting another intestine ulcer. What causes this? Is it our actions? What exactly?
So, like I mentioned, the most common cause, as we know currently, is the H. pylori. So H. pylori is an infection like any other infection, like malaria, like common cold. So it just comes. It just comes.
Because you know, people have said that if you don't eat, if you stay hungry, you get ulcer.
I'm coming to that.
Okay.
So the commonest cause is the H. pylori. You know, so whether you eat or you don't eat, I mean, the H. pylori is found in it's even found in some of the it's what they call fecal oral. So you know, if you don't wash your hand, if you eat the wrong food, you know, you can infect yourself, etc. So that aside, there are things that enhances the work of H. pylori. One of the things would then be NSAIDs. So if you are constantly abusing NSAIDs, especially those of us who are who do manual work, you know, physically tasking work. I know people consume diclofenac on a daily basis. They are taking all these medications on a daily basis just to ease the pain. That can make you develop an ulcer as well. Stress is another very important cause of ulcer. You know, when you are stressed, a lot of hormones go up. And also acid production also goes up, you know, and so it causes the erosion of your mucosa. And related to that, most of the time people don't eat. So then now there's no food, there's more acid. So then imagine the acid has to act on something. So it now starts eating away at the skin of the stomach, you know. So stress is very important. I mean, some other medication for the people, the gym freaks who have been taking steroids. Steroids also reduces the stomach lining's protection. So steroids also eventually will lead to ulcer. And of course, steroids, it's not only gym freaks who take steroids. Some people with asthma, you have to put them on steroids to control the symptoms. So they are also then at risk of ulcers as well. So there are so many things that can predispose somebody to developing an ulcer. You know, some of them are in our control, like stress. You have to learn how to manage the stress so that it doesn't go that far. You know, for me personally, I actually developed an ulcer when I started secondary school, SS1. Because of the change of environment. It was very stressful. First time leaving home, you know, going to sit with seniors who were bullying you. And then in my school, there was a 5-kilometer walk from the dormitory.
Which school is this? Adisco?
No, Achimota.
Okay.
You know, because I was on the west, you know, so we had to get up earlier and walk all the way to the east campus where the classrooms are. So that change was very stressful for me in particular. So I actually developed an ulcer in my first term, you know. So that's just to give an idea of how stress can impact. Because I was still eating my everyday meal, you know. So stress can indeed cause ulcers as well. And I was going to say, so with the symptoms, I mentioned the pain, I mentioned some other things, but there's one, I mentioned the vomiting and then the significant pain after perforation. There's also bleeding. So I mentioned the vomiting red blood. There's also a form of bleeding that is not red, and that can be very dangerous. So it may have perforated into a blood vessel, but you don't know. However, your stool has become darker. So your stool is very dark.
So you have blood in the gut.
So there's blood in there, but that blood is not red. So you may actually ignore it. But if you notice that your stool has changed color, is very dark, you know, it could actually be an indication that you are bleeding small into your intestines. You know, and that is another feature of an ulcer, which can eventually cause problems because it's going to get you are going to become anemic. You know, your productivity, your mental focus is going to be compromised, and so your productivity is going to come down. So all these things are important markers that there's something going on. So if you are not having pain, but you are noticing that your stool is progressively becoming darker, then you need to obviously pay attention to it because it could be an ulcer that is presenting in that way. So that's that. These are a few things about ulcers.
What do we do when we discover we have an ulcer? And then what do we do in terms of our normal practice to actually prevent ulcers in the first place?
So the prevention of an ulcer, apart from ulcer that is caused by H. pylori, which we really cannot do much about, you know, we need to, like I said, manage our stresses, the things that predispose us to, you know, promoting the development of an ulcer. Stress is very important. And then our diet as well. There are some practices that we do that we should actually not do. So for instance, chewing gum. You see, the brain is wired such that once your mouth starts moving, and it's not for speech purposes, you know, if I start chewing, automatically the brain is telling my stomach that there's something coming down, so prepare for it. So then acid begins to secrete because the acid has a role to play. It's preparing to kill whatever bacteria is coming down or to enhance the digestion process. So once you start chewing gum, and remember, as you are chewing gum, you're actually swallowing those sugary things. So the stomach is now ready. I mean, there's food coming, but then no food comes. But then the acid is there. So the acid starts eating away small. So if you are continuously chewing gum often, you could develop an
So
ulcer
we shouldn't
eventually.
chew gum?
Well, ideally you shouldn't chew gum.
Oh, no, I wasn't expecting that answer. I was expecting, you can, but, you know.
Well, that's why I said ideally you shouldn't, but I mean.
But if we have to chew, what should we do? So do you throw it out when?
There's really no medical justification for chewing gum. So if you want to chew gum, I mean, it's really a personal decision.
Wait. You say there's no medical justification for chewing gum. I don't understand.
So you shouldn't be chewing gum?
Yes, you shouldn't be chewing gum.
But why do we chew gum?
Because you have money to buy gum, so you decided to
no.
buy the thing
But
to stay
you
awake.
know sometimes when you have a bone stuck up somewhere, gum is the perfect thing to take it out.
You know, the residue in your teeth.
Okay, so maybe there's a dental justification. I'm not a dentist. I'm speaking.
No, we want to find some kind of justification for this
because honestly, gum doesn't solve any problem medically. It rather puts you at risk of an ulcer, especially if you, so what I can say is if you are going to chew gum, then it should be after eating, because in that case there's already food in there. So then if the acid is secreted, there's something to work on. But if you chew gum on an empty stomach, which was the point I made actually, that if you chew gum on an empty stomach, which is what mostly happens, because you are at a lecture, you are bored, there's obviously no food, then you pop the gum, the stomach is empty.
You have a confession to make?
No, I'm actually addressing one of his.
Okay.
He says that there are stressors, right? And stress can cause, but some people chew gum to distress. So yeah, I mean.
Well, I chew gum to distress.
So then it's a medical reason.
It's cost 90. You're moving from frying pan to fire.
No, but it's taking away the stress.
Yeah, but then it's not causing the acid to be secreted anyway.
So when you're chewing gum, you know, at the very beginning, you have some sugars, you know, coming in.
But you don't really need acid to digest sugar, because the sugar in the gum is already processed sugar. So that sugar is just literally passing straight into your bloodstream. So there's no medical justification. And gum. And people who already have ulcers, like I mentioned, diet plays a key role. You know, because you already have a cut on your body. Anything that you won't do to a cut on your body, you shouldn't do to a cut in your body. You know, so if you're not going to put pepper in your cut here, you shouldn't put pepper in there. So you have to reduce the spiciness in your food. That's if you already have the ulcer. You know, so that because the spices will irritate the ulcer. And then vitamin C. So vitamin C is also an acid, you know, ascorbic acid. So we need to also cut down the amount of vitamin C that we are taking. And when I say vitamin C, I'm talking about fruits, you know, the citrus group especially. So oranges, tangerines, lemon, lime, they are high in vitamin C. They are high in acid. So when you have an ulcer currently active, you want to cut down on the acid content you are taking in, you know, so that would also help reduce the irritation.
Okay, so I have a question from Henry in Teshi. Henry says, can peptic ulcer lead to cancer?
Yes, it can lead to cancer, and that's one of the complications that we fear most. You know, so eventually, especially chronic ones. You know, chronic in the sense that as in the body's attempt to heal, the irritation is still ongoing, either because the H. pylori is still there or the stress is still there. So over time, and it's over a long period of time, the injury attempted healing can cause the system to go haywire, and then cancer develops as a result of it. So yes, peptic ulcer can result in cancer.
Mansa at Ring Road says, I've heard that peptic ulcers need an operation to cure them. Is this true?
Well, I wouldn't say need an operation, but if you wait for the peptic ulcer to be complicated, like a perforation, like I mentioned that already, if it perforates, definitely it's operation. If it's in a place where the healing is not happening, then they may have to go and operate and then close it well. If the cause, sometimes on rare occasion, the cause might be an overproduction of acid. You know, this acid is not as a result of stimulation by whether it's gum chewing or whatever. This is an existing problem that's actually causing overproduction of acid, either from the nerves or from a tumor. Then they have to go and remove whatever the cause is. If it's a tumor, they have to remove the tumor, or sometimes they may have to cut some of the nerves that supply some of the acid producing area, so that it will drop the acid production. So operation is part of the protocol if it's indicated.
Freddie's asking from Tema, can honey help with ulcers?
Well, I mean, it's not going to cure the ulcer, but I mean, honey will not do harm either, especially if it is the less processed forms of honey. It won't harm the ulcer as well. You know.
Wow. What about people who do intermittent fasting? Are there any risks?
Well, there are definitely risks. I mean, if you already have an ulcer, I mean, you want to make sure that it's well treated. And I mean, let me just talk about treatment. So ulcers are treatable. I think that's something we need to know, because you speak to people and they say my ulcer, I had ulcer 5 years ago and it's still there. It cannot be. Ulcer, like I mentioned, is just like any other infection, malaria, whatever. You can treat it and it will go away. But another infection can come in. You understand? So the fact that you had an ulcer 5 years ago doesn't mean it's the same ulcer that's there today. If it was indeed the same ulcer, then there's a problem, you know. So you need to get it treated completely. And the treatment usually, we call it triple therapy. You know, it's an antibiotic because it's a bacteria in there. So there are usually 2 antibiotics, and then we call it a proton pump inhibitor, something to suppress acid production for the period that you are being treated. You know, so you need to go through, and the treatment is about 6 weeks in total. 2 weeks intensive and then another 4 weeks of maintenance to help heal completely. Most people do not go through the whole treatment, and so the ulcer never really heals completely. You know, so the treatment is 6, and it could actually be more than 6 weeks. You know, so please make sure that you go through the whole treatment so that you can actually get a relief from the ulcer. It's very, very important.
How many times a day should you eat if you have an ulcer?
Well, I mean, the dietitian will tell you that you're supposed to eat 6 times a day. So 3 main meals and then 3 in between meals. You know, so I mean, if you can, that's what you should do. You know, if you can't, then make sure that at least you are maintaining your three meals. You see, the problem is people, especially skipping breakfast, is not advisable, because by the time you wake up, you've already had about 8 hours of no food in the stomach. So if you now go ahead and now skip breakfast, then that's another how many more hours you are adding before you are not going to have lunch. And all that period is a period where there's still going to be baseline acid secretion, because the acid is always being produced. It's just that the level goes up when food is coming in. So there's always going to be baseline acid production. You know, so if there's nothing in there for the acid to work on, then they will work on the stomach. So
right. So for instance, if you have a very busy schedule, right, and then you wake up and you take maybe a cup of tea, sugar, milk, or coffee, can that help a little bit? That is not breakfast, I know.
So this is medical justification. There is no medical justification for skipping breakfast. Breakfast is indeed the most important meal of the day. So if you are going to skip any meal, not breakfast. So it doesn't matter how busy you are.
But you can't take tea.
You must make time for breakfast, and this is must in capital letters, bolded. You can even put a red pen around it. So breakfast should not be skipped, except you are doing a fast, you know. But breakfast it should not be a routine to skip breakfast.
Today?
Yes, I always make sure I have breakfast, because
what
I know. Well, I had bread, Milo, and today I didn't have egg, but I usually have eggs in the morning. No, you cannot. Breakfast should not. You can skip any other meal, but not breakfast.
Well, then I guess Angela, you know, and you guys, at least just get a. So we have creamy plus here. We have coffee,
and it goes with everything. So why are you skipping it?
So
Angela
Aki,
and
and OJ. I mean, everybody.
Yes,
look,
and OJ,
you are putting our lives at risk.
Our lives are at risk.
Yes, our lives are at risk.
Yes.
So slices of bread won't hurt the company.
God bless you for solving our problems.
Pano kakra, tea kakra. Please. I mean, this is
I didn't mention any names, so I didn't mention any names.
We are mentioning. Don't worry about that.
I'm just
you have done
medical justification.
No, you have done your missionary work, you know, by telling us the gospel. Now we are calling on duty bearers to make sure, so they know, just so they know that if we get ulcer, I'm going to ask them.
Yes.
You know, so please, bread, a little bit of bread. You know, they didn't have eggs. You're not even asking of eggs, you know. A little bit of jam, butter,
you know,
bread. You know, and then at least we know that we are having breakfast.
Yes.
This message has been endorsed.
It's breakfast daily.
And we can't skip breakfast. Doctor, thank you very much. Management has heard you.
Yeah.
Right.
How can people get in touch with you, Doc?
Well, you can reach out to me at Kelvin Owusu MD on all social media. Also via our clinic channel, Claron Health International, on all social media channels as well. And let me just shout out my team at Claron Wellness. They are watching, so shout out to Edna, Priscilla, and Ajekum, and everybody else, Evelyn, all of them.
All right, so Dr. Kelvin Owusu is the head of occupational health and wellness at Claron Health International.